Today, I will teach you 5 different techniques of rendering. Some people call it shading techniques. So the resources we'll be using are pencil, eraser, and sharpener. Our source of light will be from the right, okay? And I'm going to start with the one that is called blending or rubbing. Blending or rubbing. In this technique, you use the side of your pencil, you rub the side of your pencil on that part of your object, starting or building from the lightest to the darkest. So you put, as if you're doing layering, coloring technique, you build gradually from the lightest to the darkest. If you want a part to be darker, you keep rubbing on that part until you think you've achieved the right effect. For me, I always like it when my students work on 4 different tones. 4 different tones. And by 4 different tones, I mean the darkest tone, which is the part that is probably farthest from the light, the dark tone, the light tone, and the lightest tone. Okay? To get the dark tones or the darkest tones, you keep rubbing on that part until you have achieved what you want to achieve, or you apply a little more pressure on your pencil. However, if you are using an item like oil pastel or soft pastel, you may not need much pressure, as it were. You just keep rubbing on it, or including charcoal, depending on the tone of the charcoal you're using. So to get a darker effect, you keep rubbing or you apply pressure. When you get to the part that should be light, you reduce the pressure or you rub less on that side. When you've achieved what you think you need to achieve, rub off the marks that you don't want, extensions that you don't want, and then you can create the highlight. That would be another lesson for another time. Or you can create a highlight, which is the lightest part of your shading or rendering. Don't forget to always add the shadow. Always. The shadow is always in the opposite direction of the light. The shadow is always in the opposite direction of the light. Not only that, the shadow is always in the same direction with the darkest part of your object. Always bear that in mind. Okay, the next technique I will teach you is hatching technique. Hatching technique. And this I will define as the use of multiple lines in one direction to portray the effect of light, or to portray 3-dimensionality on a 2-dimensional surface. Multiple lines in one direction. It could be right to left, it could be vertical, it could be horizontal, it could be slanting, but it's always in one direction, up and down, right and left. Okay, if you want that to be darker, if you're using something like pencil, you can add a little pressure. But either you're using pencil or pen or whatever material you're using, if you want a part to be darker, you keep adding more lines so that it can close up the gap. And if you want a part to be lighter, you reduce the number of lines in that area. But with your pencil and probably color pencil, it's a little easier to just apply a little more pressure. As you add more lines, you add more pressure and you achieve the effect that you want to achieve. For this technique and the other techniques and the remaining techniques I will teach you today, you use the tip of your pen or the tip of your pencil. The one where you use the side of your pencil is the first one, which is rubbing or blending. The others, you need to use the tip of your pencil. So, hatching is always in one direction. The direction could even be according to the shape of the object. I've seen where artists would go according to the shape of the object in their rendering. The next one I will be teaching you will be cross hatching. Just like hatching, it lines in multiple directions. That's the difference. So you do your hatching first, and then you cross it in another direction, most times in the opposite direction. The principle is the same. You want it to be darker. If you're using something like pencil, you apply more pressure and add more lines. If you're using something like pen, felt tips, paintbrush, you don't need more pressure. You just need to add more lines to achieve what you want to achieve. I've seen where cross-hatching and hatching were done with rulers. It's still tenable, it's still valid. It's all about preference. Don't forget to always add your shadow in the opposite direction of the light. The next one I'll be teaching you is scribbling. Scribbling. In scribbling technique, you use wavy and coily lines, multiple times. And the principle is the same. If you want it darker, you add more lines. If you are using something like pencil, you can add a little more pressure to achieve a darker effect. And somebody may ask, which of these techniques is the best? If you ask me, it's about preference. Years ago, I had a student who was so good with this technique in particular. It's all about preference. At the end, before the end of this video, I'll be showing you some of the works I've done in the past with each of these techniques. And all the works I will show you, or the artworks, I will show you were class demonstrations. Okay, and the last one I will teach you is stippling. Stippling. Some people call it pointillism. It is the use of multiple dots or very short lines, like what you would call a dash or strokes. So if you want a part to be darker, you add more dots, many dots, several dots, and as you move to the lighter part of the object, you reduce the quantity of dots. Personally, I feel that this technique takes so much time, especially if you're using something like pencil. It's a little faster with felt tips. I'm speaking from my own personal experience, and I prefer doing it the most with paintbrush. There is a way I have painted in the past that I was able to achieve the stippling effect, or the pointillism effect as some people will call it. And the idea of pointillism came from the neo-impressionist movement of George Seurat, where they used dots to paint. You can hear the sound. At times in class, when you're teaching this, you see students, some become so naughty with it. Okay, please don't forget your shadow is always in the opposite direction of the light, and always remember that the same technique for shading, the same technique for shading the object is the same technique you will use to render the shadow. All right, so that is it. So we have blending or rubbing, we have hatching, we have cross hatching, we have scribbling, and stippling.